In the revelation of our triumph, we see the depth of our despair.
Hey, welcome back, ScreenCrush. I'm Ryan Airy, and this is all of the Easter eggs, references, and little things you might have missed in the Acolyte Episode 5. We are going to talk about all the big reveals, the big death, and answer the question, is this guy Darth Plagueis?
Say what?
So yeah, we have so much to talk about, and thank all of you for watching and shopping our merch store, where we have this brand new shirt that is my response to all the haters on the internet. A great quote from the master.
The ability to speak does not make you intelligent.
We also have this new Anakin Kill Sand parody shirt, as well as a ton of other Star Wars parody merch that we have designed for you, like Somehow Palpatine Returned, Hello There, Original Trilogy, and many more. Right now we have a 15% off sale running through the 4th of July, so get yours now. The links are below. So I want to take a second to go through some Easter eggs that we missed in the past Acolyte episodes that we were able to find on the StarWars.com database. Now this won't take long, but there are some pretty cool stuff that I thought you guys would like to know about. In episode 4, the mission attire that they wear to Kofar was taken straight from the High Republic character designs when they first launched the book line, and the tree roots around Kelnaka's ship are based off of these Ralph McQuarrie designs that later inspired the Ice Spiders in The Mandalorian Season 2. Now Basil is a species called a Tenon, and this species was first introduced in the novel Han Solo's Revenge in 1979 by Brian Daly. Now they designed him to look half otter, half beaver, and 100% adorable. He was designed by Neil Scanlon, who also built the Pip droid puppet. That's right, Pip is not CGI. They designed him to look like a pocket computer game that you would have seen in the 70s or 80s.
Oh yeah, or like the Tiger games in the 90s.
Oh, those games were awful. Deep cut, high five. They also designed him to look like a Sony Walkman, similar to Star-Lord's. Now on Pip's plating there are 4 stickers. Now one of these is a Loth cap, but we're waiting to get a better look at him to see what the others look like. Now I noted in our episode 3 breakdown video that Kelnaka had weird shapes on his head that I thought were dyed fur. You know, because I was looking at blurry screener footage. But it turns out these are actual tattoos and that he shaved parts of his head to display them. Now, as for me and my house, we do not want to ever see a shaved Wookiee. And by the way, Chewbacca is played by Eunice Suetamo, the same actor who played Chewbacca in the movie Solo and in most of the sequel trilogy. And according to IGN, the language on his door is Shirley Walk and it reads, "Keep out." Now in the very first scene of the show, Lumiuski's Noodle Shop was designed as a tribute to the Shaw Brothers Kung Fu classic Come Drink With Me, which I have not seen. Now I noted though in our episode 1 breakdown video that May's uniform is inspired by samurai armor, but I missed that it also has Byzantine influences as well. Yord's Padawan is a Zygerian who we usually see as slavers in the Clone Wars and in the Bad Batch animated shows. Now the Bunta tree from episode 3 produces the same poison that was used to kill Torben, which is why May warned Osha that the tree was dangerous. However, it is fitting that May later uses this exact poison from her past to take revenge against the Jedi who destroyed that past. One thing I have loved about the Acolyte so far is that we don't really know what exactly is going on here. All season long we've had these mysteries, like what really happened to the Coven, who is the Sith Lord, and how does this all lead up to the rise of Palpatine. See, I love mysteries like this because I've always liked solving puzzles and problem solving. That's why lately I've been taking math and science courses.
Oh no, I hate math and science. They were my worst subjects when I was in puppy school.
Oh yeah, dude, I was a terrible math and science student in school, but I've still been curious about those subjects. After graduating, I never really thought I'd have a chance to learn those skills, but now I spend about 15 minutes a day doing math and science lessons to sharpen my brain with Brilliant. They're the sponsor of this video. Brilliant helps you to learn something new every day, like science, computer science, or math. You'll learn to understand big things like terraforming Mars, or just regular household items like how cell phones work.
Yeah, cell phones are magic. Everybody knows that.
Actually, it's radio waves being sent between cell sites. It's all very interesting stuff. You see, math and science are hard, but learning hard subjects makes you better at problem solving in real life. Like, I wish I would have had these lessons when I was in school, because instead of a teacher droning on and on, Brilliant builds your understanding with hands-on problem solving. And this method of teaching is proven to work 6 times better than just watching lecture videos. You see, these lessons let you play with these concepts from the ground up. Plus, these lessons were created by an award-winning team of teachers, researchers, and professionals from MIT, Caltech, Duke, Microsoft, Google, and more.
Yeah, but I don't got that kind of time. I am so busy. Real busy.
But it doesn't take a long time. You can build real knowledge in just a few minutes every day. Brilliant cultivates a simple, daily learning habit with short, fun lessons. Plus, Brilliant has just launched new featured content that has helped me a lot in my job. They have lessons in how to examine data and modeling with multiple variables. And I am telling you guys, when you run a YouTube channel, you have a lot of data to sort through. Brilliant has made me better at my job with these short, fun lessons. So, to try everything that Brilliant has to offer for free for a full 30 days, visit brilliant.org/ScreenCrush or Click the link in the description. You'll also get 20% off an annual premium subscription. Now, back to the Acolyte. Now, the title of this episode is Night, and I've really neglected to talk about the episode titles so far in the show. The first one was called Lost/Found, which I think refers to Osha and May's relationship. May was lost to Osha until she discovers that she is alive in that episode. Osha is also a little bit of a lost Jedi who has left the Order. The next episode, Revenge/Justice, refers to May's quest for revenge against the Jedi, which she feels is justice for their actions. Torben would agree. He committed suicide just to balance the scales of justice. The next episode is called Destiny because we're seeing the events that laid the characters on the path that they are now walking. Last episode was called Day because it mostly took place in the daytime, but also because the Jedi are the driving forces of that episode and they are the light of the galaxy. Now, in our last breakdown video, I pointed out how nightfall came just as the Master appeared, which is why this episode is called Night. It's when the Sith Lord is the one who is driving the story. And also, you'll notice that there's a recurring theme of opposites that balance each other in these show titles. Now, we keep talking about how this show has a recurring theme of duality. Twin sisters, twin flames, and the Jedi and the Sith, the light side, the dark side, and the symbol of the Coven looks like a yin-yang, with light and darkness being in perfect balance.
Perfectly balanced, as all things should be.
Now, the yin-yang symbol has been used to embody the Force for years, even appearing in the first Jedi Temple on Ahch-To, showing the Prime Jedi balancing both sides of the Force within himself. So, this episode starts above an unconscious Osha as the camera slowly pushes in as she regains consciousness. I think the falling dust calls back to the Buta tree she liked to revisit when she was a child that we saw in Episode 3 that was actually the last day of her childhood innocence. But this is also foreshadowing the final shot of the episode when the Master looks down on Osha from above. So, in this first sequence, we see everything presented from Osha's point of view. So this opening shot, slowly pushing in on her, places us in a dreamlike state. And when the camera finally lands on her, she is brought back to consciousness. Then she trips and falls immediately into the red dirt, red like the Sith. And you'll notice the 8 swaths of dust here for the 8 Jedi. This is because last episode, the Master force pushed them all backwards, so he could pick them off one at a time. Osha then spots the first of many dead Jedi in this episode. I think this Jedi probably made this mark on the right that is very short. So as the Master pushed all the other Jedi backwards, he pulled this guy forward into his saber. So let's break down this fight. I don't think it was perfect, but I'll talk about that in a later video. But I do like that at first this fight is obscured. Instead of just giving us the endless slashy lightsaber fights we see in animated shows like Rebels or Clone Wars, this fight is choreographed to tell a specific story. It's showing us Osha's point of view in the fight. She feels helpless here because she is not a Jedi and she cannot help them. The Master makes sure that all the Jedi can't attack him at once. He deflects a blow, then moves on to the next Jedi, and then lets the Jedi lunge at him to throw themselves off balance. Now, at first, I thought this was kind of silly choreography, but then when I rewatched it, I remembered what Yord said.
He doesn't follow the rules of combat, and there's no method to his movements. It doesn't make sense.
The Jedi have not trained to fight anyone who fights like this. They train against droids or each other, while Kymir is fighting with pure emotion. Then he deflects Yord's blows, allowing this Keldor Jedi to attack him from behind. Now, in the last episode, I said this guy was Plo Koon, and he's not Plo Koon. Sorry about that, I got excited. But it does turn out he was a different prequel Jedi, This Is Your Mom. And then 2 Jedi wise up and attack the guy at the same time. So this woman hits him from his left and he uses his Van Brace to block the blow. Now, notice how it crackles with electricity, similar to the various electrostaffs that we've seen used to deflect lightsabers over the years. Then the other Jedi attempts to hit his helmet, which is also lightsaber proof. Now, lots of metals and substances in the Star Wars galaxy are impervious to lightsabers, like the scales of the Zillo Beast in the Clone Wars or Beskar armor. So this explains why his helmet looks so fused together. It was made with scraps of rare metal that could deflect lightsaber bolts. But the helmet also has another magical power we'll talk about in just a bit.
Hey, what happened to her lightsaber? Why did it turn off all of a sudden?
I am glad you asked. So if you notice, every time the Master hits a saber with his Van Brace, it deactivates the saber temporarily. Now, quite a few of you, including Vigilante Vibes on Twitter, pointed out to me that the metal used to short out the sabers is cortosis. It was originally mentioned in the novel I, Jedi, but was made canon in the excellent novel Thrawn Alliances. And also, @Sasthilak on Twitter reminded me that the Nihil also developed lightsaber nullifiers that shorted out a Jedi saber. Yord steps in for a hero shot as the 2 red shirt Jedi realize that their sabers don't work. Shades of Anakin.
All performance issues, Not uncommon. 1 out of 5.
And then the Master does that polite Star Wars thing where he just love taps you on the leg instead of cutting it off, like what Dooku did to Obi-Wan in Attack of the Clones. Then we get my favorite part of the fight when he takes down one Jedi, impales the next, and then force pulls the final one onto the same saber, stacking them up like receipts at a diner. I saw some criticism of this fight online, with people saying that they're just waiting to attack him one at a time, which, I don't disagree with, but remember this fight? George basically had Jedi extras waiting around for Ian McDiarmid to kill, like he was in a latter-day Steven Seagal movie, and you know what? It was awesome. And so is this. Osha hits him with a stun blast, which does nothing, which I actually don't remember ever seeing in Star Wars before. I have to assume that the Cortosis helmet absorbs the impact of the stun. And man, the Master is cut. I guarantee you there is already a ton of filthy fanfic about this guy on AO3. So in the ship, May grabs Kelnaka's saber, which I was sad to see was not made of wood, like the Wookiee Jedi Gungi's was.
Ah, yes, wood.
Are you sure it's not wood? Looks kind of wood to me.
Well, it could be wood, but then it would be like a really polished... Anyways, I couldn't tell. If you guys think the saber is made out of wood, let me know in the comments. The Master pulls off a saber throw, which I think is the first time we've seen this in live action. Sol deflects the saber, and when Chimera catches it, it looks a lot like this classic saber catch shot from The Last Jedi. Or it's framed like he's a gunslinger about to have a showdown in a Western. Now, there is a cool moment where he turns off his saber to let the trees dramatically fall, and the message here is not subtle. The Sith exist to destroy life. Now here we get our first clear look at the helmet. Last week, Brianna McLarty, who is the consciousness of a movie brought to life through some unholy means that we cannot help to understand, pointed out that the design of the helmet emulates a xenomorph from Alien, with a large head and rows of teeth. But here we see it's also very much in the shape of Darth Vader's helmet, which was originally designed to mimic the helmet of a samurai. Now think about this. If it turns out that the Master here is actually young Plagueis, then that would mean that Palpatine designed his apprentice's helmet to look like the helmet of his former master, after he subtly bragged about killing his master in Revenge of the Sith.
Unfortunately, he taught his apprentice everything he knew. Then his apprentice killed him in his sleep.
Giving his apprentice his master's old helmet would be yet another way to dunk on Darth Plagueis. So Master Sol wants to keep Osha safe at all costs. Now at first I thought, well, that's kind of convenient for the plot, but then I realized that this guy is harboring some major guilt about what he did to Osha as a child. Now I'm looking forward to finding out what that actually was in a future episode, but it does make sense that his guilt would motivate him to making sure that Osha was safe back at the ship. Meanwhile, Jackie lawn fights May in hand-to-hand combat. Now notice how this fight doesn't have the grand choreography of the fight that we see outside. This is more of like a gutter street fight where these two people are vying for control while they're rolling around in the dirt. It's a nice way to contrast what's going on inside and outside the hut so the scene doesn't become too visually overcrowded. So she slaps these glowing handcuffs onto May, which are kind of a staple in Star Wars. Sol asks the Master who he is, and he replies,
You don't remember me.
Because, as we're about to find out, the two of them did meet in episode 2. In fact, later we'll go through and find some of the clues in past episodes about the incredibly obvious reveal that we find out during this fight. When Sol asks him to remove the helmet, the Master says,
And let you read my thoughts.
So this is implying that the Master's helmet not only looks cool and deflects lightsabers, but it also can keep a Jedi from reading his thoughts. Now that's very interesting.
So you're saying it's like Magneto's helmet when he kept Professor X from knowing what he was thinking?
Yes, apparently that's exactly what it is. Now, we haven't seen this exact thing in canon before this, but in the Legends comic Dark Empire, there was a device called the Universal Energy Cage that the Emperor used to trap Jedi. And I should also note that lots of Sith Lords have used helmets over the centuries. There was one mask called the Mask of Lord Momin that actually contained the spirit of an old dead Sith Lord. Darth Vader used this Sith artifact to help him build his palace on Mustafar. And I want to shout out how great of a villain this guy is. Not only is he badass and he looks extremely cool, but he also knows exactly what to say to Master Sol to cut straight to his shame.
What master hides his face from his pupil?
You tell me.
It seems like Chimera knows more about Osha's past than Osha does. He knows what Sol and the other Jedi did to the Coven, and you just know that he is sitting on top of that information like Walt was sitting on this bomb.
I watched Jane die.
Now, at several points in this episode, the Master pulls a Batman and totally disappears. And in this moment, I love these soft little piano notes that give his disappearance a real supernatural feel. Yord says,
He gets into your head and he stays there.
And if the Master is able to get into a Jedi's head, then that would explain why they were moving so slow against him during the fight in the forest. Then Osha says,
my mother could do that.
So he's referring to what the mother did to Torben in episode 3. And then Jeki Lon faces off against the Master. So she has this awesome moment when Kelnaka's saber reactivates and she's able to double fist against the Sith. Now, a couple episodes ago, we did a video where I complained that the show just wasn't that fun, like it was taking itself too seriously. Like, I am actually ready for some good old-fashioned space adventure, and this little grin that Jeki gives, that is so much fun. @PeteAnd on Twitter pointed out that when she has these two sabers, she is using the Shien variant of Form V fighting style like Ahsoka did as a Padawan. But you'll also notice that her attacks on the Master are undisciplined. She is wailing at him, almost like she's being lured into using emotion to fight him, which is how a Sith fights, so he's forcing her to fight on his terms. And then she finally realizes that she's overmatched and switches to using both sabers in an X so she can simply deflect his blows while retreating. And then pulls another Batman.
He does that a lot.
Kelnaka's destroyed saber stays buried in the red dirt, symbolic that his light has been snuffed out by the Sith. There's also some interesting symmetry here with Luke's lightsaber being buried in the snow in The Empire Strikes Back.
Again, it's like poetry, so if they rhyme.
As May runs away from the Master, notice how all of a sudden there's an extreme close-up of his face as he talks to her. Now, we've seen this technique used before. In The Empire Strikes Back and in The Last Jedi, we've seen characters communicate through the Force while showing close-ups of their faces. But here, we see a very abrupt, extreme close-up to show how the Master is actually intruding on May's mind.
Get out of my room!
Elsewhere, Osha hears the voice of young May. Osha. Just like she heard her call out to her in the first episode. I think this is showing us that their bond through the Force is still strong, even if Osha would like to ignore it. She gets a feeling or sees a vision that the Master is going to kill them all. Now, I think she has this vision because, for a brief moment, she was linked through the Force to her sister. Alone, she's not very strong in the Force. But, as we theorized here on the channel, we think that she and her sister form a Force dyad, like Rey and Ben from the sequel trilogy. As we talked about in this video, Darth Plagueis and Palpatine were seeking a Force dyad so they can then use it to obtain eternal life. This is why Rey and Ben's energy heals Palpatine so quickly at the end of Rise of Skywalker. And I think that in this scene, we're seeing our first example of how Osha is not a powerful Force user unless she's teamed up with her sister. Master Soul and his Padawan Jeki face off against the Master, and he uses his helmet to headbutt Soul's lightsaber and deactivate it. And then Jeki steps in to rescue her Master, and I was not ready for this. Guys, this was amazing visual storytelling. First, the helmet is knocked off. We see it on the ground in an insert shot. So this is like making us wonder, oh my God, who's underneath the mask? I want to see. But then they tease us by blocking the view of his face with Jeki's dead body. The Master pulls out a hidden lightsaber, and while using one hand to hold back Jeki's blow, he stabs her 3 times from behind, breaking this classic rule of narrative fiction.
Kids don't die!
And yes, it turns out that it was Chimere. Now, this was not a surprise. I mean, after all, he was the only suspect the show has given us. In fact, if this moment was meant to be a big reveal, then this is like one place where the show has really failed. All last episode, he was basically telegraphing to the audience that he was secretly the Master.
You went in there and risked your life for my master?
No, I risked my life to help you.
That story is super sketchy.
And I also want to shout out a friend of the channel, Joanna Robinson, who last week tweeted this picture of Chimere carrying his duffel bag, asking him, hey Chimere, where are you going with that big bag? What's in the big bag, buddy?
Another classic tweet from Joanna Robinson.
She's brought a ludicrously capacious bag.
What? What's even in there? Huh?
When Master Soul tries to gain the moral high ground, the Master cuts him deep.
You brought her here.
You see, the Master knows that Soul feels guilty about what happened at the Coven. He knows Soul has been lying to Osha, and he knows that the best way to get to him is to play on his fear that he is a bad Master who has a history of failing his Padawans. And I also want to call attention to Master Soul's golden vambraces, which I did mention in episode 1. Gold is a color often worn by the Jedi during the High Republic era, but also notice how these have the emblem of the sun, and his name also means sun. It is also emblematic of how the Jedi are the light of the galaxy, or how they serve the light side of the Force. And then Chimere lays out his mission statement.
Freedom. The freedom to wield my power the way I like.
Interestingly, this is exactly what the villain of the High Republic novels, Marchion Ro, wants. He wants the Jedi and the Republic to leave him and his Nihil alone. He wants total freedom and doesn't want to answer to anyone.
Like a baby or a libertarian.
Okay, but then he also says,
I want a pupil.
Now, he could be saying this because he is secretly the apprentice, and he wants to use his own apprentice to overthrow his master. This would follow the rule of two that was set in place by Darth Bane about 900 years before this show takes place. Essentially, the Sith were not destroyed by the Jedi, the Sith destroyed themselves through greedy infighting. So then, Darth Bane, the only surviving Sith, instituted the rule of two, that there will always be one master to have power and an apprentice to covet that power.
Or, you know, Chimera might just want a friend because he's lonely.
It might also be that, and then R.I.P. Yord.
Another Yord bites red dust, another Yord bites red dust, and another Yord gone, and another Yord gone, another Yord...
You done?
Yeah, I'm good.
So then Soul and Chimera get into a fist fight that is reminiscent of classic kung fu movies before Osha intervenes, but the master still gets in another dirty dig at Soul.
I've accepted my darkness. What have you done with yours?
Guys, the big mystery of this show is not who is the master. The mystery is what the heck Soul and the other Jedi did at that coven. Soul is carrying around some major guilt.
Major guilt?
And I think that the show is going to end with Chimera using this information to recruit Osha into joining the Sith. And look, there's a lot of heartbreaking moments in this episode, but by far, the most heartbreaking moment was this.
I love you, Ben.
In the arms of the angel.
Think about it, this droid has been Osha's only friend for years.
Well, yeah, but if the master survives, then maybe the little droid survives too, and then the master and the droid and Osha can all be friends together.
Yeah, that's nice. So Osha uses the light to attract Chekhov's Umbarats, and this is a classic way for a villain to be defeated, consumed by nature. It's reminiscent of the Ewoks defeating the Empire in Return of the Jedi.
And also like when those puppies ate Scar in The Lion King.
After Soul is stunned, that leaves May and Osha alone. Now, after Osha blames May for starting the fire, May says,
They've brainwashed you.
Now, in our episode 3 breakdown, I pointed out how Leslie Headland, the showrunner of The Acolyte, said that one of their influences in the show was the classic Kurosawa film Rashomon. In that film, we see the same events take place through entirely different points of view. And here, we're getting a tiny inkling of what might have really happened that night. The Jedi sold Osha this story that May started the fire that killed her family.
I was there when her sister started a fire that killed her entire family.
But now that Osha is with Chimera, I think he's going to open her eyes up to the truth. So May says,
I can help you return to yourself.
Now, a few weeks ago, a friend of the channel, Mike Mazzio, threw out a really fun theory that Osha and May are actually the same person. You know, that the whole thing is like Fight Club, and one of them is force projecting the other. Now, that's a really fun theory, but I think this episode disproves it. However, when she said, I'll help you return to yourself, I was fully expecting one of them to fade away and be absorbed by the other one. But then May gains the upper hand and says,
You never could block.
Which calls back to their force training exercise that we saw in episode 3.
Osha, I expect more from you.
So May gives herself a haircut so she'll look like Osha, and then she sneaks off the planet with Master Soul.
Hey, how come that Jedi can't detect through the Force that she is an entirely different person?
Well, the Force doesn't work like a scanner at the airport. I think he would have to actively close his eyes, reach out, and try to read her mind in order to see that she is not who she says she is. But then again, the Force just always does what's most convenient for the plot at any given time.
That's not how the Force works.
So May and Soul leave the planet.
And presumably they leave all their dead friends behind to be consumed by local wildlife.
But then something very interesting happens. Chimera heals Osha's wound. Now, of course, we saw Rey do this a couple times in Rise of Skywalker, and we've seen Grogu do it in The Mandalorian.
Come on, baby. Do the magic hand thing.
But this is not an ability that we normally associate with the Sith. And our very own Colton Ogburn, the guy who's eternally trapped in our television but doesn't know it, so please don't tell him, pointed out that the Force heal ability is very much like what Palpatine said about Darth Plagueis.
He could use the Force to influence the midi-chlorians to create life.
So I think it's very possible that this master has been Darth Plagueis all along.
What?
Now, we have put out numerous theory videos on the channel about the Acolyte. My favorite theory that we've had is that Osha and May are a Force dyad. Like I said earlier, Palpatine and Darth Plagueis were trying to form a dyad themselves so they could obtain eternal life. You can even tell that in Rise of Skywalker, Palpatine was very excited at the prospect of being so close to a Force dyad.
The life force of your bond, a dyad in the Force.
And just to telegraph this potential Force dyad, right here they play the Kylo Ren theme at the end of the episode.
We are.
Thanks to the Bounty Hunter Guild podcast for that observation. Now, like I said before, the reveal of the Master's identity was very obvious, but I did like how the Master was hiding in plain sight and disguising himself as a fool. This is exactly how Yoda was hiding in The Empire Strikes Back.
R2!
And in hindsight, there were several hints along the way. The first time May talks to Kymir, she asks,
"What are you wearing?"
Because the last time she saw him, he was wearing his full Sith gear. He is also the person who reminds her of Sith doctrine.
The Jedi justify their galactic dominance in the name of peace.
And in the last episode, he was the one who kept reminding her and the audience that her mission was to kill a Jedi without a weapon. I also like the way that he slouches and slumps his shoulders and wears baggy clothing. This is an old Clark Kent trick where he would always slouch to appear shorter than Superman. Now, he did actually mess up in episode 2 when he mentioned a he while the Jedi were listening in.
He will be so pleased.
But then, when the Jedi show up, his very first priority is to make sure that they don't enter his mind.
Please don't do the memory wipe thing or whatever it is you guys do.
Because he doesn't have his magic magneto helmet.
Exactly, and then he tells the Jedi that May wants revenge and where to find her. Because this is going to set up May to be in the same location as both Master Soul and Osha. This would give May the opportunity to either kill Soul or to confront her sister. And if this guy is Darth Plagueis, and if his main deal is trying to find a Force dyad so he can live forever, then he would want May and Osha to reconcile and then be in the same place. It's a very cool twist, but I think they telegraphed it a little bit too hard last episode. So guys, that's all the Easter eggs that we found, but if you found any, let me know in the comments below or at me on Twitter. And if it's your first time here, welcome to the channel. Please subscribe and smash that bell for alerts. For ScreenCrush, I'm Ryan Airy.